We've all heard of the lost city of Atlantis, which, according to tradition, lies somewhere in the Bermuda Triangle. But you probably didn't know that Japan has its own legendary lost kingdom called Yamatai, or that some believe it's been found. Japan's Ryukyu Islands extend almost to Taiwan, and they've long been an attraction to divers. Most come to see hammerhead sharks. But in 1986, Deborah Dixon Smith came for another reason. She was there to get a special tour of the official site known as Yonaguni.
You go in this dramatic entrance. It was like stepping back in time.
Once out through the other side, a whole city seems to appear.
It really just was one of those wow moments. And when you look over the edge, you can see down into this very, very deep gully. It was very dramatic.
Let's take another look at the details here. There are straight lines, steps, and sharp angles.
It seems to be that whatever this structure is, somebody built it there and sea levels rose enough that it got submerged.
In this artist's rendering, it looks like a small city or a compound with a pyramid. And as Deborah learned, the site may be connected to an ancient legend.
There's a theory that the video is evidence of an ancient Japanese civilization known as Yamatai. It's said to have been a large, powerful nation that was wiped off the face of the world when sea waters rose and their cities were buried under ocean water.
Yamatai is said to have been ruled by a secretive sorceress named Himiko. Its location has never been determined, much less the reasons for its disappearance. Here's the thing. Unlike Atlantis, the existence of Yamatai shows up in historic documents from around 300 AD. There's even a record of their queen, Himiko, sending an envoy to the Chinese emperor. The theory is that Yamatai sank due to the shifting tectonic plates in the region. But what's the real story? Let's see how our experts tell it. Geologist Bob Anderson says it's not unreasonable to think this site was once on dry land.
If you go back 20,000 years ago, the shorelines moved around to different places, so you can't rule out that that was above water.
But did humans build it? The strongest evidence are those angles and steps. They seem too perfect to be formed by nature, at least to our eye. But it turns out that can happen naturally.
These are the sorts of things that geologic formations can break into because of earthquakes or tsunamis as they move. Those plates break in very, very geometric forms. There's no reason to believe that they had to be cut by man.
But if this is all natural, wouldn't we expect to see similar structures all over the planet?
This site is a geological phenomena. I don't know of another area where that large of stones have been moved in that kind of formation. But that does not make it a structure.
One big issue. Barnhart says these massive steps are actually larger than anything ever sculpted, carved, or constructed in the ancient world. And even though this is the most seismically active area of the entire planet, you'd still expect to find more evidence of a prior civilization if one had been here.
These large slabs, you'd expect at least in the cracks to find some sort of evidence of human occupation if it indeed was some sort of sunken place. There's nothing like that whatsoever. Archaeology calls those things geofacts. They look like artifacts, but in fact, they're naturally formed.
Based on Barnhart and Anderson's expertise, we're going to conclude that this site is a natural phenomenon. That means it's not the lost kingdom of Yamatai. Its location is still a mystery. So if you're diving off the coast of Japan, keep your eyes open. It's July 2014 in the Indian state of Chhattisgarh, where there are a number of caves and paintings made by hunter-gatherer populations going back as far as 10,000 years. Archaeologist J.R. Bagad claims he recently made a unique discovery here.
और ये शैल चित्र में जो है लगभग 10,000 वर्ष पुराने आदि मानवों के द्वारा निर्मित में शैल चित्र है.
While giving a tour to reporters, Bagad shows a rock face on which there are half a dozen dark red and yellow painted beings standing together in a group.
In this particular painting, which looks quite strange, we have some individuals with larger heads, different colored arms and hands, and they don't look like the other people depicted on these cave walls. So we have a lot of people believing that the ancient humans who painted these drawings were actually painting images of aliens from another world.
The theory that these are depictions of extraterrestrials is bolstered by another painting of what appears to be a mechanical-looking disc painted on the cave ceiling.
It resembles a saucer-shaped object, which became kind of the pop cultural representation of UFOs in the 1950s and 60s.
These aren't the only ancient representations of allegedly extraterrestrial beings.
We also have a number of other ancient civilizations who have created similar things. For instance, we have the Wajina figures in a rock shelter in Australia. We also have petroglyphs in Capitol Reef State Park here in the United States.
Let's take another look at this disc-shaped object from India. These three lines, right here, again right here, and right here, have alternately been described as beams or legs of a tripod, and these apparent portholes, right here and right here, match with contemporary representations of alien spacecraft. So what can our experts unearth about this peculiar cave art? First, anthropologist Kathy Strange says these ancient drawings must have marked a significant event or encounter.
They're not just doodles. Cave walls are very valuable. So for them to paint this, it must have been something important to them as a people. They're trying to represent something that they want to pass on to the next generation.
These bulbous-headed figures do indeed resemble the humanoid depictions of aliens that eventually dominated in the 20th century. So a connection seems possible. However, archaeologist Ed Barnhart believes they are documentation of a different kind of cosmic trip.
These ancient cultures relied upon people called shamans who would typically go into altered states of consciousness to receive information, and those were induced by hallucinogenic drugs or starvation or sleep deprivation. What they painted on the walls were their experiences they were having during their hallucinogenic trances. In those caves, they would feel like they're floating outside of their body, and they would show themselves elongated and the floor falling out below them.
It's not that the figures' heads were extra large, but that the bodies were stretched as they felt they were floating up. And as for the UFO-like object, that's also more likely something else from the heavens.
Instead of it being a beam from an alien ship, it actually is just sun rays, and they're projecting that the sun is at its full potential, probably noon, right above your head. There's other examples in the general area in India and other places in the world that show a very similar object.
Our verdict? These well-preserved Indian rock paintings are most likely the work of shamans from prehistoric hunter-gatherer societies who made them while in an altered state of consciousness. Even if these ancient artists weren't seeing aliens, they were definitely experiencing something truly out of this world. It's February 2017 in Hong Kong. A professional stunt biker carries his BMX bike up flights of stairs to the top of a skyscraper. He comes out onto the rooftop pool deck of a building we've decided not to reveal. Cameras are rolling as the stunt guy lifts his bike over a low railing, places it on a narrow ledge, and mounts it. He pops a wheelie with the front tire hanging over the edge, then goes for a ride.
This is ridiculous. He's riding his bike on the ledge of a skyscraper, and now he's back to the nice pool. He should stay near the pool area. It is very unsafe what he is doing.
This isn't the only example of him braving the heights to get the perfect shot. In this clip from Dubai, he does acrobatics on a ledge and stretches his body between two edges of the structure. And check this out. In a drone video showing a tall, snow-covered building under construction, another stuntman uses a crane like a set of monkey bars going out across the narrow beam and back. These acts are illegal, so it's little surprise our requests for interviews were declined. But the videos alone suggest these people seem to share an immunity to a fear of heights.
I think humans naturally do have a tendency to be afraid of heights.
That makes sense from a Darwinian perspective. Humans with a genetic aversion to death from falling are more likely to live long enough to reproduce.
Some people can overcome this anxiety or this fear or this biological necessity to stay alive and can place themselves into these situations where they are obviously one minor slip away from certain death.
The Mohawk Indians do this thing called walking iron, which they've done since 1886. They have built many of the most iconic buildings in New York City. The Chrysler Building, the Empire State Building, the Twin Towers. People have said that they have an innate ability to manage heights.
Of course, others have famously used hair-raising heights as sites for stunts.
You have the Flying Wallendas doing these incredible stunts, stringing wires between buildings or over Niagara Falls or the Grand Canyon.
So what special ability do these folks have that most lack? Our experts want to see if these clips are even real. If so, how can this be possible? Forensic video analyst Michael Primo does a macro block analysis of the pixels in the clips from Hong Kong and Dubai.
This is a still frame from the macro block that's reporting red and purple light tones. Then we move on to other areas of movement where the operator is moving his extremities, his arms. And we see this similar pixel information, this red and purple color, that the encoder is saying this is new information. Now, typically when a video is processed, these pixels will be multicolored across the screen. From this macro block analysis, I was able to determine that the encoder was a trustworthy witness. All of these natural details would have had to have been carefully manufactured and recreated in this environment to be able to fool the viewer. In other words, this doesn't appear to be faked.
So if all these videos are real, do these stuntmen have some unique biological makeup that enables them to perform these daring moves so high off the ground?
Some studies have been done that have looked at the genome, and you can pretty accurately look at over 200 different genetic factors and have a highly reliable way of predicting whether someone has a fear of heights.
Still, no fear of heights is only part of the picture. You also need a good sense of balance and proprioception, the ability to tell where your body is in 3D space.
For example, the guy with the bicycle, he's looking down at his handlebars. That's giving him a horizontal axis to inform his reference point of where he is in 3D space.
There are people with greater sense of balance and coordination. But then once you add training to it, now you're talking about a person that can do things that really does look extraordinary. It doesn't look like what a normal person can do.
So the age-old question, is this an innate ability or something learned?
The human brain is plastic. We can rewire it. So these people have either been born with brains that are wired differently or they've rewired them themselves. Because instead of being fearful of the heights, they are actually enjoying the heights. They get a rush out of it.
Our verdict? Like the famous Mohawk iron workers and flying Wallendas, these high-flying stuntmen have learned to control or even feed off their natural fear of heights. Still, there's a degree of luck involved with all these tricks. Please do not try this at home. A quick warning that some viewers might find the following images disturbing. We're in Jambi, Indonesia. A father at a local bike shop is working as his kids play in front. Then, without warning, the family finds themselves in the path of fatal danger. Watch again. Let's slow it down and freeze. This appears to be the moment Dad senses the card. And in about 0.78 seconds, he springs into action and pulls the children to safety. Incredible. Similar displays of incredible parental reflexes have popped up recently, like in this video from Vietnam in 2019. Just watch that again. The woman is knocked off the motorbike, but still has the presence of mind to grab this child just before she's crushed by the oncoming truck. It's almost too fast to measure. Author Alexis Brooks says it might not just be fast reflexes at work here, but the power of premonition.
One of the theories that has been postulated by noted author Dr. Larry Dossey says that we all essentially have a premonition instinct, but particularly in the case of parents, where there is a unique bond with the child, premonitions can be even more likely.
But even if these parents had a premonition of danger, it's even more astonishing how quickly their bodies were able to react in a fraction of a second.
It's said that typically we only access a portion of our power, perhaps about 65%. But there is a phenomenon called hysterical strength.
There are dozens of anecdotal stories of humans in a moment of panic, summoning extraordinary strength to lift cars or other extremely heavy objects off of trapped individuals, including a mother in Georgia in 1982 who lifted a Chevy Impala off her trapped son.
When something is happening so quick, where there's no time to react, there is a rush of adrenaline that pushes us to do the unfathomable. And I think that might be something that we saw here.
Look, scientists are divided on the existence of this phenomena because it's nearly impossible to test emergency situations in a controlled lab. However, these videos might be proof of either parental ESP or superhuman reflexes. To be sure, we call in the experts.
Although it's entirely possible and conceivable to manipulate events like this using sophisticated software, technology, I don't see or detect any evidence to support that that's what was done here.
So the video is legit, but physicist Michio Kaku doubts it's proof of a premonition.
Sometimes we have premonition that an accident will happen, and then sometimes it does, in which case you think that maybe you're psychic. Most premonitions are false alarms, but 1 time out of 10, maybe it does prepare you for an emergency. So this ability of ours to, quote, predict the future by having a premonition is very selective. We forget all the misses.
So if this wasn't the result of a true premonition, perhaps these lightning-fast reflexes are related to hysterical strength.
Usually when you perform something, your prefrontal cortex acts as a check and says, slow down, do it this way, do it that way. However, in an emergency, where split-second decisions have to be made, a lot of the prefrontal cortex's decisions are overruled. All of a sudden, you take risks. Yes, muscles will tear. Yes, you're going to suffer damage, but you do it anyway because the adrenaline says you can do it.
Our verdict. While we can't prove or disprove these parents had a premonition, it was certainly adrenaline that gave them extraordinary reflexes at just the right time. The space race is certainly heating up. And it isn't about which billionaire can reach orbit first. Instead, it's about China's efforts to leapfrog its rivals. One spectacle in the skies over China put on such a light show, it left many wondering what they'd just seen. October 2018, Hohhot, the industrial capital of Inner Mongolia. The city of 2.8 million is going about its business when this tears across the sky. A large, bright object corkscrews overhead, leaving a breathtaking trail. Startled citizens all over the city begin filming. It looks like some sort of vapor swirling in the sky. And at one point, right here, it looks like a beam shining down on the city.
This thing, whatever it was extremely strange looking. So you kind of can't blame people for looking up and thinking, it's an alien spaceship.
Of course, a rocket launch is the obvious explanation. But hang on, rocket launches don't usually happen over large, densely populated areas. Their contrails aren't typically illuminated like this one. And importantly, they usually have linear flight trajectories, not this weird corkscrewing path.
It doesn't seem to be going anywhere specific. It seems to kind of be meandering throughout the sky.
That raises another theory. Might this be the debut of a breakthrough military technology?
One explanation that has been posited is that they come from the Dongfang Aerospace City, where they are creating new types of technology, space-age technology, and that they are the result of an effort to give China a leg up in the space race.
There's a lot of mystery surrounding this particular area, and no one has come forward to claim responsibility, so we don't actually know what happened here.
The Chinese military keeps a tight lid on what's happening at Dongfang. Foreigners are rarely allowed to visit. But we do know the Chinese admitted to using a missile to destroy one of their own satellites back in 2007. So is this video proof of some new advanced space weapon? Is it a craft from out of this world? Or something else entirely? Astronomer and video effects designer Mark D'Antonio first considers that this might be a comet.
Oh, this is cool. We talk about comets in the night sky all the time. And comets do move across the sky.
But known comets are astronomical objects millions of miles away.
They take days, if not weeks, to move across the sky. This is moving across the sky in a matter of seconds. So, is it a comet that's very close to the Earth? If it was that close to the Earth, it would probably envelop the entire Earth. This glow would be everywhere.
So we can rule out that theory. As for a UFO, in general, one of their defining characteristics is an unknown means of propulsion, like the famous Tic Tac video from 2004.
In a lot of the truly unexplained UFO videos that we see, we don't see the characteristics that you have in this video. Namely, all of this exhaust trail that you're seeing here.
That massive exhaust trail brings us back to the rocket theory. But there's some explaining to do. First, that illumination. How can it be a rocket if it doesn't look like night launches in the US? McMillan has a theory based on the time of day.
These videos were filmed roughly an hour after sunset. And so what you're seeing is the rocket itself is above and high enough altitude with the curvature of the Earth that the sun is actually still reflecting light off of the exhaust trail.
Okay, but what about that bizarre corkscrewed flight path?
So whatever the object is, you can see it's changing trajectory. Could this be some type of classified or experimental rocket testing? Possibly we're looking at some kind of GPS, laser-guided, some type of rocket system that is targeting something, potentially moving. You can see these patterns in something like Israel's Iron Dome system, which is designed to seek out rockets as an air defense measure. That's also on the table.
But hang on. McMillan says the fact that this happened over a highly populated area opens up another, less impressive possibility.
So it certainly appears that we have something that has gone awry, and it's not traveling the path that it was intended. The idea that it could be a failed rocket system is certainly plausible.
Our verdict here? This was a Chinese rocket. But what it was and whether this video captured a failed launch or a success, we can't say. If the Chinese launched at night to keep it secret, well, we can safely say that didn't work. One thing is certain. The new space race is underway, and the Chinese government is building its own space station. So we are sure to hear more about their ambitions in the coming years. It's December 2011 in Pyongyang, North Korea. Supreme Leader Kim Jong-il has just died at the age of 70, and the whole country has fallen into a period of ritual mourning. During a 3-hour funeral procession through the capital, throngs of civilians and North Korean soldiers stand in rows, dozens deep, to watch Kim's casket pass by. But after the Associated Press releases an overhead shot of the crowd, some eagle-eyed viewers notice something seems amiss.
There's a man in an army uniform who seems to literally be twice as tall as everyone else.
As we zoom in closer, it appears this soldier is about 8 feet tall. And what makes this soldier even more remarkable is that in North Korea, where famine is frequent, men are not known for their height.
North Korean soldiers are somewhat shorter than average than South Korean soldiers, and it's probably because of poor nutrition that they have.
Kim Jong-il himself often wore platform shoes to compensate for his short stature.
The average male height is around 5 feet 4 inches, or even shorter than that.
Bear in mind also that the North Korean government is notorious for photoshopping images for propaganda purposes. Check out these soldiers at a sunset ceremony. Who needs shadows? Or this image of a thriving farm. Note the cloned sheep. And look at this impressive North Korean bakery. Plenty to eat here. And the workers can even stack the loaves in identical piles.
North Koreans are world-renowned for their propaganda and their hyperbole and their exaggeration. So it wouldn't be at all surprising if they tried to slip something in, like we have incredibly tall soldiers.
Another theory? The photo is real, and the regime is actually engineering super soldiers in a secret lab.
A lot of people speculated that maybe there was some kind of experimentation that was happening that would have created a super soldier. In 2020, a report came out that stated that China was actually using CRISPR technology to genetically modify its own soldiers, to turn them into, essentially, super soldiers. A person without regret, without pain, without compassion, without fear.
CRISPR technology is like a set of molecular scissors that researchers can use to cut and alter DNA sequences.
Some have speculated that maybe because North Korea is China's neighbor and their allies, North Korea is using it secretly as well.
The Korean People's Army is the second largest military organization in the world. Enlistment is compulsory, and a whopping 30% of the country's population is serving in some capacity. We all know they have nukes, but could this really be the country's new secret weapon? First, let's handle the fake or real question.
I think the first thing that leaps to mind is this is just an editing glitch. They've duplicated soldiers, and then when they copied one, they accidentally made it a bit too big.
But let's think about this for a second. It seems off that North Korea would have to duplicate images of soldiers. Unlike loaves of bread, they've got infantrymen in abundance. And when West examines the tall man's uniform, he spots revealing details.
Compare it to the others, and you see that the uniform is actually a bit different. It's got this kind of longer coat that comes down further down on his legs. And it doesn't really seem like it's a small person that's been magnified into a large person. It seems like what we actually have here is actually a very large soldier.
So if this is a real person, could he truly be a super soldier? Military expert Tim McMillan says that might not make much sense, since extreme height could be a disadvantage in the field.
For one, if you're going to be used in a ground combat situation, you're a much better target than your contemporaries who are shorter than you and lower to the ground.
People say the ideal range of heights for a soldier is around 6'2", and there's very practical reasons for that. You can't fit into troop transports if you're 8 feet tall.
So if this isn't a super soldier, who could be that naturally tall? West concludes there's one man it could possibly be.
It's almost certainly the North Korean basketball player, Rim Yong-hoon. It matches him very well. His general shape, his shoulders, the shape of his head, and just the way he stands.
But why is a basketball player in military garb? Well, after the U.S. State Department initially denied the 7'8" tall basketball star's request to play in the NBA, North Korea honored Ri with a position in the military. The verdict? This is most likely North Korea's tallest man, Ri Myung-hoon. As to why he's so tall when North Koreans are shorter on average, well, that remains a mystery. It's possible Ri has gigantism, which is generally caused when the pituitary gland releases excess growth hormone in childhood. It's May 2017 in Indonesia's Maluku province. Locals are heading out to work when they make a gigantic, gruesome discovery floating in the water. Cell phone video shows them examining the rotting corpse of a 50-foot dead sea creature that has somehow washed ashore. Here's a look from another angle. The formless blob is not only immense, it looks like it's coated in some sort of white, shaggy hair. What kind of animal has hair like that?
It seems like it's something that shouldn't exist. And in fact, if this animal were terrestrial, it wouldn't be able to exist because of its sheer body mass.
Folklore is chock full of legendary sea creatures as big as this carcass. The ancient Hebrew Leviathan, the Jormungandr of Norse mythology, and the Kraken, a kind of giant octopus, so big it was described as a floating island in Viking eyewitness accounts.
Oh man, I bet that stinks there.
But field researcher Cliff Barrickman says these carcasses have their own name.
Globsters. Globsters are cool in every way. It's part blob, it's part glob, it's part lobster. I mean, how awesome is that?
Globsters have been turning up on shores around the globe for years. This one, known as the Cherbourg carcass, was discovered in France in 1934. But what to make of this one? Globsters have also washed up on beaches in Florida, New Zealand, Bermuda, Canada, and South Africa, but they've never been spotted in the water alive. So what exactly are we looking at here? Let's turn to our analysts. Wildlife biologist Lucy Eckersley first focuses on that amorphous mass of tissue.
I think these could be mistaken for lots of different sea animals, and because they look kind of squishy, you might think that they look like a giant octopus or a giant squid.
A giant squid? But look.
We can see some exposed bone.
This video clearly shows this creature has a spine, so it can't be an invertebrate. Next question, what to make of that hair?
What looks like hair across this creature is actually fibers of collagen.
Marine biologist Dr. Shay Conger says that collagen, a protein that provides structure to skin, bones, and tendons, is the biggest clue.
When components of the body begin to break down, the collagen begins to emerge. And because collagen doesn't break down as quickly as other tissues, these globsters can start to take on a hairy appearance that you wouldn't expect or be able to explain if you weren't familiar.
So what was this before the sea decomposed it into a globster?
This is actually pretty typical of what I would expect to see in regards to the carcass of a large whale. You can see some striations on the bottom of this object, and that is what we would expect to see in the mouth cavity of a large whale, such as a blue whale.
And Conger should know. As you can see, she's been up close and personal with globsters herself.
To witness firsthand one of these animals at close distance, to the human mind, is almost unsurmountable. You're looking at the scale of an animal that's bigger than anything that's ever lived on the planet. And so to unpracticed eyes, they seem absolutely impossible.
Ultimately, this story is about the power of the sea. In this case, its power to transform the bodies of dead animals into something unrecognizable. And once that hair was explained to us, it became clear. Our verdict, the globster is not the kraken or a sea monster. It's a dead whale. It's September of 2018, and residents of Southeast Asia are bracing for a megastorm, a super typhoon. Winds up to 180 miles per hour blast through the region as social media is flooded with images of the damage. One video, said to be from the Shenzhen province of China, is particularly alarming. Watch as this commercial airliner attempts to land as it fights extremely heavy crosswinds. It seems to almost tip over, then it does a complete flip. But just as it seems like it may crash, the pilot appears to regain control. The footage quickly goes viral as it triggers many people's worst fears of flying. But watch again. A number of things seem off about this footage, not least of which are the supposed typhoon conditions.
Certainly the winds are strong, but it doesn't look like there's any rain or even a ton of cloud cover.
Planes land in tough crosswinds all the time. What you're seeing here are all verified incidents.
The most dangerous part of flying a plane is takeoff and landing. That's when you're going to encounter things like crosswinds or wind shears that can really affect how you come in or how you take off. But I've never seen a passenger plane do a full barrel roll like this.
Wow. I don't know about you, but I could watch this video over and over again. It's that wild. But many people online thought it was real. So we decided to track down the original source of this footage to get the real story. The creator of this clip is Minnie Sirbis, a filmmaker in Los Angeles.
So this video was 100% CGI, a CG plane, fence, sky, everything.
But here's the thing. Minnie never claimed the video was real. That was someone else.
Somebody stole my footage. When the video went viral, it wasn't through my YouTube channel. It was through somebody else's Facebook post. And I only learned about it after it got millions of views.
So clearly, many people were duped. But still, could an airliner flip like this in real life?
Commercial planes, they're not designed to do barrel rolls and things that you might see from military jets. As the plane goes through these rolls, it appears to successfully recover off camera. That really wouldn't be consistent with what we would see in a commercial plane. You're going to lose any propulsion that you have at this point because you have a catastrophic shift in this plane that is designed not to do this.
Just to be certain, we asked physicist Hakeem Oluseyi if any kind of weather system could cause a plane to flip, like in this video.
A plane maintains its lift via the headwind, right? It's the relative speed of the plane going into the wind. And if there is a crosswind, then that will be perpendicular to the headwind. So it would act independently. So it could shift the plane side to side independently of the forward-back motion. But now there's also a twist. There's also a rotational motion, which is also independent. So that's why the ideal wind to create something like this is a fast headwind with a tornado going around it in this way.
That kind of wind would leave a trail of destruction. But look, in the video, the fence and tower are intact and undisturbed. So, our verdict? There's no question. This is a hoax. Minnie told us he still has no idea who passed off his CGI project as real or why. But you can be sure that when we see stuff like this, we'll be sure to call it out.